All right, perfect. Hi, everybody. Greetings to you, wherever you are. Hope you had a good morning. If you are in the Americas, I hope you are having a good morning, a good cup of coffee, getting ready for work. If you are on this side of the world, a good afternoon to you. If you're on the far side of the world, then it's a good evening. It's good to be able to connect again. Do me a favor. If you could subscribe to my channel and give me a like, that would be awesome. Just subscribe and give me a like. I'd love to grow this channel. This is where you are going to learn about all sorts of things. Things that are textual, biblical, historical. I'll comment a little bit on politics as well, but basically, for now, this is where we are on this aspect of life, which is religion. You need to go watch part 1 or lecture 1 of this Bible series to understand where we are going, and also some introductory videos that I've already made in order to understand where we're going. All right, so we're going to be starting with lecture 2 today. Lecture 2 is the beginning of the Bible, as I promised. We are studying the beginning of the Bible, as I promised, and we're going to the book of Genesis. All right, so let's start the sharing routine. Screen 2 is what I want. Here we are. And I've got my screen divided into 2 parts. The first part on the left, where you can see the Sefaria page in Tanakh. Tanakh basically in Hebrew is an acronym for Biblios, which is in Greek, means a collection of books. And in English, it's come to be known as the Bible. So you've got the Tanakh on one side, which is an Hebrew acronym for Bible, which means Torah, which means the teaching, Nevi'im, which means the prophet, and Ketuvim, which means wisdom writings. Because the Bible, in actual fact, if you are a Christian, it starts from, well, if you are a Christian, it's good for you to know that the real Bible starts from Genesis and ends in Malachi. The New Testament, as I mentioned in the previous video, was never incorporated into the Bible. The New Testament, before it was appropriated by the Romans and they changed it for their own use in the use of the church, it was a Jewish treatise. It was a historic treatise and biographies of various Jewish rabbis. And of course, it centers around a Jewish theme of salvation and the good news. It's not called the Brit HaChadashah, which is a new covenant. That's not its proper name. Its proper name is Besorat HaGeula, which is the good news of salvation. That's how the Jews of the first century referred to what was happening in their time historically. So before I go and rant on about history, my name is Zuko, as you know, and as you can see on my video, I am a student of religion, a perpetual student of religion, and also I'm a student of human medicine. So at some stage I might refer to other scientific things as we go on, because science and religion go hand in hand, okay? So let's get started. Enough about me. I hope you have had a good cup of coffee. I just finished mine. It was great. Let's go to the book of Genesis. Why do we have to go to a book in order to understand our world, first of all? In the previous video, I explained to everybody that the Bible is not a superstitious book. It didn't just fall from the sky and everybody started worshiping the Bible or reading it because it fell from the sky. In the Christian church, people have always said, especially the teachers of Christianity, the Bible and the Bible alone, nothing else. This is problematic because the Bible was not given as a book. The Bible was given as a Torah, as a teaching. So it's an oral tradition. The Bible is an oral tradition. So when your pastors I don't want to assume you're a Christian, but you would have heard Christians talk about how the oral law isn't really the Bible. That's a fallacy, because the Bible comes from the Torah. The foundations of the Bible are Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. Those 5 books are called the Torah, or the teaching of Moshe Rabbeinu, or Moses, our great teacher. Now, I might be teaching from a Jewish point of view, but please, I'm trying not to display any Jewish bias. My bias in these lectures are going to be towards the Bible, not bias towards the Jewish people or bias towards Judaism. The reason why I teach from a Jewish perspective is because the Bible is not a excuse me, the Bible is not a Christian book. It's a Jewish book. It was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and partly in Greek. The Jewish people did not want to translate the Bible into Greek because the Bible, the Tanakh, especially the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, those books are not the heritage of the nations of the world. Those books are the heritage of the people of Israel, the 12.5 tribes. Those people were given this book. And then in the 1st century and 2nd and 3rd century, when Jewish people are being enslaved in Rome. Hold on, is my microphone actually working here? When Jewish people are enslaved in Rome, basically what happens is, yeah, why is it not oscillating? So the Jewish people are enslaved in Rome from the year 70 when Titus comes and destroys Jerusalem and takes the land and takes all the Jewish people into exile in Rome. So the Bible finds itself in a land that is foreign, and it is subject to scrutiny by Roman scholars who bought into Christianity in latter years, but in the first 200 years, they were not Christian. They were just Roman scholars, and they wanted to take this Jewish book, this powerful book that talks about a powerful God, and rewrite it for their own ideas and for their own purpose. Now, I'm not just going to make accusations here. I'm going to back them up as my video library increases. I am going to show you from the founding fathers of the church exactly what I've just said here. So when the Westerners, the Romans, get a hold of the Bible, they do with it what they want because they thought it was a powerful document to use to conquer the world. And so they rewrote it for their own good and their own ideas. So if you are atheist or you're not into religion, but you're an educated person in the West, you would have heard and you would have seen something about the Christian Bible, that it starts from Genesis to Revelation. This is not true. Bible is Genesis to Malachi at least, and the New Testament you can treat as biblical material. You can also treat it as historical material, not historical, history material, compilation of history, because the New Testament really talks about history, doesn't quite create a new religion. It's all about the history that develops in the land of Israel during a period of maybe 30 to 40 years, all right? But this history is not written until the Jews get to Rome. That's where they start writing this history of the New Testament. And of course, it's not the New Testament. It's called the Good News of Salvation, Besorata Geula. That's what the Jews who wrote it intended with it. They did not intend a new religion. So anyways, it is there in slavery that the Romans get a hold of it and they start doing with the Jewish writings what they want. It's not just the New Testament that was changed, it's also the Torah and the Tanakh was also changed in order to produce a Christian Bible. And I'm going to show you all of these things through a series of videos that are going to come in the future. So let's go to the Bible. Here we are. What I was trying to say to you earlier is that the Bible was given in an oral form because the Bible really is a teaching. It's a teaching, the Bible. It is also a conversation and an interaction between God and human beings. If ever there's a record of God and human beings, it's in the Bible, the first 5 books. People in the West are often cornered to believe or disbelieve because critical thinking in the West and also learning in the West is based on skepticism, while in the East, people learn by seeing things and by experiencing things and by trusting what they see. See the difference? So if you're a scientist or you study scientific material, medicine or whatever, chemistry, biology, you would have heard of the scientific method, which also requires observation and documenting of what you see. So the Bible is an observation. It started off as a conversation and an interaction between God and human beings. And then it gets to the stage where Moses starts writing these things for posterity. Okay. So the Bible is an oral product, which later is written down for posterity. No parts of the Bible were just presented to human beings as books. It's all oral tradition that's being transmitted and recorded for posterity. And of course, it's important because the Hebrew people existed among many nations who would rather not see them exist. So things have to be written down for posterity. But also the Bible came before the Hebrew nation was formed through Abraham. Whatever interaction Adam had with God, that was the Bible. For example, if you open your Christian or your Jewish Bible, if you go to some, what is it? Mizmoshir Leyom HaShabbat. I think it is Psalm, is it Psalm 2? Let's see. Let's see what Psalm it is. My point is, this Psalm was written or composed by Adam. And then it is reworked by King David. King David reworks the oral composition of Adam. Psalm 92, actually. Mizmoshir Leyom HaShabbat. It should be Psalm 92. I'm having a moment here. So let's go back again. There we are. 92. How can I forget something so easy? But anyways, here we are, Psalm 92, a psalm and song for the Shabbat. Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat. This was composed by Adam. Adam didn't write the Bible. Moses did. He started writing the Bible. A transmission of what was oral and its recording on paper or parchment or whatever for posterity. For example, this psalm says, a song for the Shabbat day. It is good to praise the Lord, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High. And it says to proclaim your steadfastness, your steadfast love at daybreak and your faithfulness each night, with a 10-string harp, with a voice and a lyre together. And I assume this is David's addition to it, because Adam is trying to reveal to us that even before him and Eve sinned, already there was praise and enjoyment of the Sabbath day. So this is oral tradition being put onto paper. This is an example of what I'm trying to say. So now that we're going into the Bible, skeptics and people who say, well, God doesn't exist or he cannot exist, everything will happen by chance. You have the right to believe whatever you want, but at no stage in human history did humans forget to document things. Chapter 1. I've got here on the left, obviously, the Masoretic text, which is the Jewish version of events that is based on a trustworthy hand of the scribes, Jewish scribes, which are called Soferim. and they've faithfully preserved the Masoretic text or tradition. The Samaritans, which are the northern tribe of the people of Israel. So Judah and Benjamin are the southern tribe, which is the tribe of Judah. In the north are the Samaritans, which are all the other 10 tribes of Israel, 10 and a half tribes or so. They also have their own tradition, and therefore they have their own version of the books of Moses. And there's absolutely no real difference between them. It's a case of different writing styles. It's all the same story. All right. So let's read this story from the Mesorah, which I like because it captures all the details that were intended in the oral teaching. All right, thousands of years ago. So the Hebrew Bible says, Bereshit, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'at haaretz. Let's go find I think this one has a whiteboard. Whiteboard, where are you? Where's my whiteboard? Anyways, there we go. Annotate, okay, good, but where's the whiteboard? Anyways, I use so many of these things that I sometimes forget where to get certain things. Like I prefer to use Cisco. I don't really use Zoom except when doing this. I'm absolutely clueless right now. Where's my whiteboard? Should be here somewhere. But anyways, let's forget the whiteboard a little bit. I'm just going to open a regular paint thingy, and I'm going to write on my paintbrush thingy. I just have to, there we go, it's on screen now. So, yeah, I get it. So let's move this a little bit that way. So it says here in Hebrew, like I said, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'at haaretz. The translation is a problem, okay? So let's start by establishing a few rules about language and translations. Now, I'm used to the translation world because even though I'm a student of religion and human medicine, I still have to earn a living. So to earn a living, I've worked for the past few years as a translator into many languages and from many languages. So the translation world is a bit, it's a tight rope to walk on. You have to know what you're doing. But when it comes to Hebrew and Greek, all right? So if you translate from Hebrew into Greek, I don't like this pen. Let's use a brush. So if you translate, oh, much better. So if you translate from Hebrew, right, into Greek, which is what happens to the scriptures over the years, over the millennia and centuries. If you translate from Hebrew to Greek, you lose about 80%. You lose 80% of what is intended in the Hebrew text. If you take Greek into English, all right, this work of taking the Greek scriptures into English is only 400 years old. In my opinion, you lose up to maybe 90%. You just keep losing the meaning of it. So 400 years ago, the church does this, Greek to English. And the result of it is the Holy Bible in English. All right, so this Holy Bible had one job. It was to be used to conquer the world. Is that how I spell conquer? That's more like concur. Anyways, oh, I think it's like this. I don't know, I'm having a moment here, but I can't spell. Anyways, it was used to, let's say, to take over the world, because that's what it was. So the Holy Bible, its job to take over the world. And for example, uh, parts of this change that exist in the New Testament, I'm just giving you an example. From this intention, we have in the Greek scriptures a guy named Jesus in Greek, Jesus, and in English, they coined Jesus 400 years ago. So Jesus is coined only 400 years ago for the sake of conquering the world. So if you take the Hebrew text into Greek, you lose 80% guaranteed. You take Greek into English, you lose 90% plus of the meaning. Okay. Now, what happens, don't say this. So what happens when you lose this meaning? When you lose the meaning, now you have a Greek version. Now you have an English version. All right, so it's not only English, it's obviously all the Western languages, Spanish, Portuguese, even Russian and other languages, etc. Of course, Russian's not a Western language, but the church, the Eastern Byzantine Church is the Roman Empire anyways. So what happens is you are stuck with a writing which yields a story, but you have nobody to interpret the story or to enrich the story by giving the details of the Hebrew meaning. Even worse, you take it further into English. You further refine this translation. Now you just have text. This text, we have to ask it questions. For example, question number 1, language. From which language does it come from? Number 2, context. Actually, no, audience. Who was it written for? Number 3, context. Context means we have to dive into history and happenings and stories and all sorts of things, and also the intentions of the speaker. By the time we go into text, we have already left the Jewish world. We have gone deep into Rome, into the Roman world. The moment we have to deal with just text only, this is a Roman way, a Greek and Roman way of doing things, dealing with the text and not with the origins of the text. What does this mean? It means that you emphasize rather, trust on the translation. As a translator, you cannot trust the translation unless you know the original intent or meaning. Why am I struggling to write today? Or is it every day that I struggle to write? Or because maybe I'm thinking of many things at the same time, I don't know. Anyways, if you have to trust the translation. So a lot of people in the West, a lot of Christians believe by faith, right? So Christians believe by faith. They don't study anything, they hear it, they accept it by faith because it kind of makes sense. The Jewish world, which is where the Bible comes from, the Jewish world, the Jews believe by experience. Everything that's in the Bible, that's written in Hebrew, is a result of experience. Okay? What does that mean in the bigger picture? In the bigger picture, we have two things: originality, or let's say the original. We have the original, and then we have a pseudo meaning, we could say. What does a pseudo meaning tell us? Original gives us facts. A pseudo meaning gives us doctrines. Gives us doctrines, gives us dogmas, religious dogmas. Why? Because there's no experience with the text. Christianity has no experience with the text. So they have to create something in order to have trust. In Christianity, trust is called faith. In the world of the Bible, it's just trust. The word is trust. In Hebrew, it is emunah. So the people in the Hebrew world, they trust because they've seen and experienced God and his interaction with humans. In the Western world, people have heard about God and his interaction with humans, and therefore they have faith in the translations, and also adopt these doctrines and dogmas without consulting the original. Christian biblical scholars, they don't go deep into learning Hebrew. They get the gist of something and then they push whatever the agenda is. I was shocked in my first 2 years of university to discover prominent scholars in universities around the world, prominent Christian scholars that don't even believe what they're teaching or what they're studying. They're just scholars because they're interested in the Christian and scientific world. They couldn't be bothered about going to church even. I was shocked. But your average Christian scholar probably comes from a Christian background, some sort of Christian denomination, and they kind of know what they're doing, but their theology is based on a pseudo meaning. It's not based on the original, because if you go to the original, there's a problem for the Christian or the Christian world, because now you have to consult a rabbi. The consequences of consulting a rabbi is conviction, and you might just become Jewish because you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. So it's better to use the pseudo meaning or the translation in order to maintain your own persuasion and your own ideas, your own bias, your own beliefs, but most importantly, your own mission, which is in Christianity to envelop the whole world with this religion and ideology. I've always wondered, as a black man, I've always wondered, actually as a black young person, I've always wondered before I went to university why it was that white people in the secular world didn't bother with religion in church. They used to prefer a secular lifestyle over going to church, and churches are becoming empty, is because they could read the Christian Bible and find contradictions but never find answers to their questions, and they decide to just walk away. Let's go into the text. It says here, Beer-Sheva, all right? So it says here, Beer-Sheva, which means to begin with, or in the beginning, right? It means to begin with or in the beginning. It's a very interesting text, this one, because it says in the beginning or to begin with. What does this imply? It implies, number one, there is a beginning. Or maybe there was a beginning, right? This word be means in, or we could say to begin with. In English, you can just say in the beginning, right? But in Hebrew, it doesn't just mean in the beginning in Hebrew. In Hebrew, this letter is called beit. Beit, its symbology in Hebrew means a house. Let's go to the Christian Bible. Christian Bible, let's go to the King James, the venerated King James Bible. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's a fact. It's an absolute fact. But it doesn't tell us the story. In Hebrew, it says Beer-Sheva, which means God had intentions. God wanted to make the world his house. So God's intentions with human beings is to make the world his house. But in order to make his house, there has to be a reshit, a genesis. Right? There has to be a genesis. What is a genesis? A genesis is not to create something new per se. It means there's a development. Those of you who are in the real estate business, you will understand what I mean by development. So you have a house, right? It's a simple house, but then a developer comes and puts in a fancy roof, gives the house a balcony, puts windows in the house. Maybe if you're lucky, he has a swimming pool put in for you to go swimming, right? So that's what developments do. So God, we get the idea immediately from the Hebrew Bereshit that there was an intention, a house, and then a genesis. How do we know that there's an intention? It's because the Hebrew language is never written, Hebrew is never written in capital letters. All the block letters in the Hebrew language are consistent, all right? As you can see on this side, on the left side, all these letters are consistent, but the B is bigger than the other letters, and it's also bold, which means there's something that we must dwell in the word Bereshit, and that's because it's a house. So God's intention was to make this world his house. So does God exist or not? That's for you to answer. Was the world created or not? That's for you to answer. But the oral tradition of the Hebrew people, and now the text tells us that indeed God intended to make the world his house, and there was a Genesis. This Genesis resulted in something. What does the Genesis result in? Let's read the text again. Bereshit bara. So this Genesis leads to a complete bara. All right, so I'm trying to change colors, not, but I'm having another bright moment. Like I never have these bright moments when I study, but I have them when I teach, and I make so many mistakes because I'm trying to tell you, because when I talk about things, I've got so much going on in my head that I'm trying to simplify it for you, and I think that's where I make schoolboy errors, because I'm trying to bring this out in the simplest way possible. So what does the Genesis bring about? What does the Reshit bring about? It brings about a bara. What is this bara, right? This bara is creation. In the Christian Bible, which is a translation, it says, in the beginning, God created. There's no mention of God yet in the Hebrew. The Hebrew says Bereshit bara, which means a house, and in a house must be a genesis and then a creation. Okay. But the creation or the genesis results in a creation. What is created in the bara, sorry, what is created in the Genesis? It says Elohim. All right. So In the bara is Elohim. Now it says Elohim, you know, is God. Even if you're a Christian, you know that it means God. What's the Hebrew telling us? Is it saying that in the beginning, the Genesis created God? Is God a creature? No, God is not a creature. God is a title. It's a job description. Uh, sorry, not title. So God is a title. This is a job description to be God, meaning you are overseer and creator and originator of everything. So in the beginning, now it takes us back to scientists saying millions of years ago, right? Or billions of years ago. Scientists are not mad in saying millions and billions of years ago because the earth gives you evidence of age, right? But we'll get to it. So what does this mean? It means many millions or possibly billions of years ago, God decides that the earth is going to be his home. There must be a Genesis. The Genesis results in the creation of the title Elohim, which means the originator of everything. So God didn't create himself. God created the title Elohim. God wouldn't tell us his name until he gives it to Moses. God gave his name to Moses. He's the first human being to know who God's name was, according to the written tradition. Adam was the only one with the privilege of walking with God. So throughout all this time, we get the feeling that humans didn't really get to know God's name until he gives it to Moses. But anyways, let's continue with what we're doing here. So it says, Bereshit, God intended to make the earth his home. There must be a Genesis. The Genesis created, or the Genesis brought about the creation of the title Elohim. And then there's an et, Aleph, Tav. That's very interesting because Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. The world was created in 10 utterances or sayings. So the first letter is in the Hebrew alphabet is Aleph, and the last letter is Tav. In Greek, this is in the New Testament especially, this is translated as Alpha and Omega. These are all translations. Genesis 1 verse 1 tells us about Aleph and Tav, two Hebrew letters. But these letters, like everything Hebrew, they have a meaning that we must get to understand. So, the Hebrew alphabet is Aleph Beit. Aleph Beit. That's what the alphabet is called. This Aleph Beit evolves to this word in Greek alphabet. Aleph Beit is also known as the ancient word. Ancient word in Christian circles, Torah in Jewish circles. The Torah is also known in Judaism as, or the Mashiach or the Messiah is thought in Jewish. Yeah, is thought in Jewish circles to be a living Torah. A living Torah or a living word, right? So God creates this word. So what happens? So God, in the beginning, God wanted to make the world his home. He coded a Genesis into the existence of the world, which yielded the creation. And then obviously Elohim, the title is created, but Elohim creates the word, which is thought to be a messianic figure in Judaism. So a messianic figure in Judaism cannot be God at all because it's created. And then it says the word, or through the word, The heavens were created. But we don't see Elohim and then Hashamayim. We see Elohim here, God creates the title, and then creates the word, and then the word creates the heavens, and then the word again creates the earth. So the heavens and the earth are created by a system or a mechanism which God has created. Let's look at that verse again so I don't confuse you. Bereshit. To begin with, or in the beginning, God wanted to make the world his house, Habaita. Reshit, Genesis, bara. The result of the Genesis is a creation of the title Elohim, and then Elohim creates the word creates the heavens, and the word creates the earth. Everything that exists in the world was created through the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet in 10 utterances. You're going to see this as we study Genesis, that God used the alphabet to create, and also he did so in 10 utterances. This is an oral tradition that has been turned and recorded into a written tradition which results in the Bible. This is what I was trying to explain to you earlier in the teaching. The Christian Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Let's go compare these two verses. So, let's just do that. So in Hebrew, there are 7 things to learn from in Genesis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things to learn from, or facts. When you translate it, you lose these facts. In the Christian Bible, it says in the beginning. So that's correct. In the beginning, that's 1 thing. God, good, that's 2 things. Created, that's 3 things. The heavens, that's 4 things. And the earth, that's 5 things. So in the translation of Genesis, in the translation of Genesis 1 verses 1, you have lost 20% of the meaning. Sorry, 20% of the wording in the translation, not the meaning. And you have 0. Actually, let's have a look at the meaning of this. So God, in the beginning, there was a God, there was creation of the heavens and the earth. What's missing is the reason for the creation and the medium of creation, and the sequence of creation. So just by translating this text into English, we've lost 50% of the meaning. So in just one verse, 20% of the meaning is gone. I want you to understand how this works. 20% of the meaning is gone, of the wording is gone, and then 50% of the meaning is gone. That's about 70% of the important things that's missing, lost. Now, there's a verse where Moses pronounces a curse on anyone that adds to the Bible. If you add to the Bible, you're cursed. Or if you take away from the Bible, you are cursed. All right? Why is there a curse? Why is there a curse associated with this? Is because these are God's words. This is what God did. If you add to the story, you are creating your own version of the narrative. If you take away, you are hiding the narrative. This is why the Jews or the Jewish people, or even the Hebrews, we could say, they were not great fans of the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, because when you translate it to Greek, you commit this sin. But in Egypt, some years ago, many years ago, the rabbis, because they were colonized people, the Jews, the ruler of that time forced the Jewish people, the rabbis, 70 rabbis, to translate the Bible into Greek or the Torah into Greek. Do you know what's amazing? All 70 of them ended up with the same translation, exactly the same translation. But now when you study the Bible, that's a translation in Greek, which has got at least 70 to 80% of what's important missing, you are falling into the sin of adding and taking away, and the result of the sin is a personal interpretation. And a personal interpretation is also a sin. Why is it a sin to have a personal interpretation? Because you are creating a new belief based upon missing information and unsure information. And so you can say, well, I need to study the Bible in English so that I can understand it for myself in my language. Or I need to study the Bible in French because it is my language. That's irrelevant according to the Bible. Because the moment you read it in your language, you have lost, sorry, not open, we need to say new, because you've lost everything that is written in the Hebrew. You've lost the meaning that God wanted to make the world a house. God instituted a Genesis, which led to creation, and then the creation led to the creation of the title Elohim, and then Elohim created the Word. The Word finished the creation by creating the heavens, and also the Word created the earth. Then you would have forgotten all of this stuff. I mean, not forgotten, you would have missed out on all these details. That's the problem. You're going to miss out on all these details. All right, so one last thing that we have to do is to complete the meaning of Genesis chapter 1, verses 1. A quick look at the Christian Bible. It still says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the only piece of information you've got. In the Jewish Bible, you've got, or in the original Hebrew text, you've got a multitude of things that are associated with Genesis 1, verse 1. Here's one more thing, all right? So what does it say here? It says in the Bible, it says, oh yeah, Aleph, almost forgot, Aleph. So it says here, Bereshit, bara, Elohim, et hashamayim, and then it says here, ve'et haaretz. Oops, here it should say haaretz. And because there's a tzaddik safit here. So let's count how many words are in this text. In this text, we have one word, Bereshit. There's one. Bara, that's 2 words. Elohim, that's 3 words. Et, that's 4. Shamayim, that's 5. Ve'et, or in original Hebrew, we'et, is 6. Haaretz is 7. So there's a coding here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. What's going on with these words? Here's the thing. When you talk to the people of God, or the Hebrew people, or the Jewish people, when they interpret the Bible, it's unlike Christianity. They just don't have the text only. There's also numbers and hidden meanings. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's plain and simple English, without any meaning or explanation, really. But in the Hebrew, you have seen the meaning of the Alphabet itself, the word itself, the words have meaning. They mean something together or as individuals. Now, what happens? Have you ever seen or heard the debate in the scientific world, really, between the world being billions of years old versus 6,000 years old? Here's the thing. God coded 1,000 years in each word. 1,000 years in each word. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. And then this one I'm going to do in a different color because the humanity has not yet lived the 7,000th year, but we are going to live the 7,000th year when the Messiah comes. So we have here billions of years old, sorry, billions of years versus 6,000 years. Okay, this is the debate going on among intellectuals all over the world. If you understand the teaching of Hebrew, you understand that the world is 6,000 years old. What do I mean by the world? The planet. The planet is billions of years old or even more, because it says in Genesis, in verse 2, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and the wind from God sweeping over the water. So the planet was there before creation. The planet existed before the creation of the earth. It was what? It was water and darkness. There was nothing on the earth except water and darkness, and of course the Spirit of God, which hovered over the waters. So it is a very plausible belief that the world is possibly billions or trillions of years old. But now, why do we have 6,000 years? These 6,000 years that are coded in Genesis are for Reshit. Remember this word Reshit? This is the Genesis. In other words, the development of the world. The world was not created once to remain static because of the word Reshit. The world is not static. God created, it means that God developed this stone. The earth was just a rock with water. So God takes this rock with water, he dresses it up, he puts grass in the field, he puts trees in the forest, he creates forest, he creates the oceans, he puts fish in it, and then eventually on the sixth day, he creates humanity to inhabit the earth. We're going to learn all this stuff as we go on. This is just Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, only that we are covering in this video. And so, since the day of creation or development of the planet, every species that's on the earth has been given the ability to regenerate. This is where the theory of evolution comes from. Evolution is completely plausible. It's a plausible theory, but on a micro level, in biology, we refer to it as a micro level. What does it mean, micro level? It means in the cellular level, which means as time goes on, plants and creatures regenerate themselves and they take on new characteristics, defense mechanisms, new colors, new yields, new everything, depending on their environment. Okay, so now we're going into the world of of biology. In the next video that I will do, we are going to go into the theory of evolution versus these two Bible verses that we've already discovered. So evolution is definitely a plausible theory on a micro level. It is absolutely true because, for example, look at what happened during lockdown. During lockdown in the city of Venice in Italy, nature regenerated itself. The water was not filthy anymore. The natural cycle of cleaning water and restoration of fish and vegetation in the ocean took place over these 2 years, and Venice was rejuvenated. The water wasn't smelly anymore because of pollution and tourists and other things. So the impact on Venice, the biological or the environmental impact was reduced. Things that were created by God 6,000 years ago when he started dressing the world, giving it clothes, they still exist today because of because of Reshit, this Genesis, this continuous evolution. When you look at the volcano last month that was erupting in Iceland, that is Reshit, that is continued Genesis. The world keeps yielding new lava, creating new islands, making existing islands bigger, and on those islands, new vegetation still grows, and from lava, it goes into the ground forms, there's sand, there's plants, there's everything. If you give the environment a chance, it will always do Reshit, it will always do a Genesis. So now you know. There's a reason why there were 7 words here. Because each word is 1,000 years. So the world we live in today is 6,000 years old. But the planet on which the world is built on, this planet is possibly billions or trillions of years old. So science gets 99.9% here, right? The other 0.1%, I'm not giving science because science does not want to acknowledge that there's a God. But science is on the right track. Science is what we see, the evidence of things. A conversation and interaction with God is the one that gives us the true story of what really happened. So humanity has lived through 5,000. How many years have we lived? 5,800, I think. No, 5,784. 5,784. I think that's how much we've lived on this earth. We are right here. Humanity today is here. We are on the verge of the end of the 6,000 years. What happens at the end of the 6,000 years? The world, this dressing of the world comes to an end. What we know in the world comes to an end. And then we start these 7,000 years where, whether we like it or not, human beings are going to have an interaction with God during the 7,000th year. Christians refer to this as heaven. Jewish people refers to this as Olam Haba, which means the world to come. And the 7,000 years don't take place on this planet, but they're going to be the people who are taken to the world to come in the 7,000th year. They'll be hovering above the earth. They'll be in the heaven, hovering above the earth, and on the earth there'll be desolation, complete desolation for 1,000 years of complete desolation. But you will probably discover as well that in this 1,000th years or 7,000th year, God is giving the world a break, a Shabbat, a Sabbath. God is giving the world a Sabbath to regenerate because us, mankind, we have abused this planet for 6,000 years. I'm going to stop here. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to give this video a like and also subscribe. If you share it with other people, I will be elated. That will help me to grow my channel. I hope you've learned something. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video when we expand on the creation. One thing to take away is that even in the creation, the end of the world was coded. Very interesting. Later.